Hey, everybody, and welcome to Work Your Career Wednesday with Bradley Clark, brought to you by White Husky Films. I tell you, if you need anything and anything, did I say anything and anything? Anything and everything connected to video, podcasts, conferences, commercials, music videos, whatever you possibly could think of, go see Steven Saldana. His number is on the screen, or you can always visit us at www.whitehuskyfilms.com. And I got to tell you, dream, create, record in that order. And when you choose White Husky, you will be so glad you did. Now on with the show. Now I got to tell you, this is the first installment of our Tony Buzbee series. Tony is a prolific attorney, managing attorney for the Buzbee Firm. Just a storied career. He's helped so many people. Recently, he's coming off the successful defense of Attorney General Ken Paxton, and he is running for City Council in District G. And we go through a whole bunch of things. We go through who Tony is, his upbringing, what he had to go through growing up, sort of what drives him, what put that chip on his shoulder to be a voice for the voiceless, and I guess a voice for the silenced in a lot of ways. What his vision is for Houston and District G. But more importantly, I think in this series, we get a chance to see Tony Buzbee in a different light. And I really hope you enjoy it, and I hope you learn a lot. He also gives some secrets to success, some books that he encourages his employees to read, and goes through a lot of the, I would say, the misconceptions surrounding who he is and how he works. So in any case, without further ado, I hope you enjoy this series. Please make welcome our guest, Mr. Tony Buzbee. Hey, everybody, and welcome to another installment of Work Your Career Wednesday. And today, I'm telling you, we have an incredible treat for you today. Just a little bit about the history that I have with this man. When we first moved to Houston, I had learned that he was in the mayoral race. And I said, man, I got to find out who this guy is. I did a little research and I was thoroughly impressed. My wife and I were shopping for a trip back to California, and he was having a campaign event. And after that campaign event, I was like, wow, this is really incredible. And there was a certain amount of there was some embattlement going on at that point in time. We'll get into maybe later. But Sylvester Turner ended up winning, and he ended up doing the thing and going back to his practice, and just continues to be an amazing force in Houston. His law firm is one of the best around, and he has been known as the best trial attorney in Texas. He's fresh off the victorious defense of Ken Paxton and his impeachment trial. I'm just going to quit talking and introduce the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Tony Buzbee. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me today.
Thank you so much thanks so much for taking some time with us today. I've read a lot of stuff about you. Again, we've kind of kept in contact a little bit, since we met all those years ago. And again, thank you so much for doing the show. I really want people to hear from you, though. I've read some articles about you, and it's clear that they don't know you. And it's a fact that from what I've seen and people that I know, you, in my opinion, and I've been saying this for a while, you're really a voice for the voiceless. And most recently, you were a voice for the silenced. And it doesn't matter how powerful someone is. When that long arm goes to silence someone, that's a big deal, no matter what side of the aisle you're on. And so I want people to find out who you are, because, and I know this is probably anathema to a lawyer, but a lot of people watch video these days and do a little less reading.
Yeah.
So I want to go through your story, and for the first half of this, I want the audience to know who you are, because I think once they find out and they understand who Tony Buzbee is, there's nobody that can run against you that can say a darn thing. So take it away.
This I typically mention my upbringing. I think, where somebody's been gives you a good sense of where they're going. My father cut meat for 43 years. He was a union meat cutter. He worked for Safeway. Safeway went out of business, and he lost his pension and ended up working at our local grocery store, trying to make ends meet. My mother worked in the high school cafeteria. She also drove our school bus. We were the last stop on the bus route. She kept the bus at our house. And growing up, I had to get on the bus at 5:30 in the morning to make the trek to school, as she did her route and ended up at the school. So she because she was always at the school, kept me in check. When I remember when I told my parents that, because neither of my parents, nobody in my family had ever been to college, I expressed some interest in trying to go to college. It was either go to college or enlist in the military. And because I wanted to get out of my town of 1,300 people, I wanted to get out of it bad. And my mom said, we really don't have any way to help you. We don't, I didn't really know what resources were available. But there was a local guy in my hometown who had been to Texas A&M and had served in the military, and called my mother up one day and said, I really like your son. He was a big local football fan, and I had done pretty well on our football team. And he said, I'd like to take your son to Texas A&M and show him around. And, imagine if somebody called you today and said they want to take your child somewhere, you would, red flags would go up. But my mother was really flattered by that. And she said, yeah, he'd love to go. So he took me to a A&M Arkansas game at Texas A&M. And, College Station at the time was about 40,000 people. It was a big city for me. And, I was just impressed with the Corps cadets, and I was impressed with the way they marched in, and all of that just really impressed me. And so I started trying to figure out, well, how can I go to that school? I want to go there. And I don't know if your listeners or your viewers ever even know what this is, but I got a business reply card in the mail after I took what's called the ASVAB, which is a military aptitude test. And so somebody somewhere in the bowels of the military thought that I would be good in the military. So they sent me some card to let me apply for a ROTC scholarship, which I did. And I was able to get that. And that led me to Texas A&M, which, just expanded my horizons, the sophisticated city of College Station, saying that a little bit tongue in cheek, but for me, from a town of 1,300 people, it was the big city. And I met a lot of people from all walks of life all across Texas and the country. And for the first time, figured out that, you can compete with other people, that, you measure up. And I really had never had that thought about myself. And so from there, I went into the Marines, and I graduated in 1990. So you may recall about that time was Desert Storm. And we were engaged in pushing Saddam Hussein out of Kuwait. And so after my military training, my initial training, I finished first in that training. So I was able to kind of choose what my Marine occupational specialty would be. And I chose infantry. My old saying was grunts pound the ground. And I was very gung-ho type of young man. And I met my platoon on a vessel in the Persian Gulf. And they had not had a lieutenant, an officer, in more than 6 months. So that was a challenge, just trying to convince these grizzled veterans who all thought they were going to be shot at and killed and do a amphibious landing, convince them and get their respect. I really learned a lot about myself during that time frame, and ended up doing 2 more deployments, one more back to the Middle East, where I did special ops training for Kuwaiti troops and Saudi troops. And then after becoming a reconnaissance officer, deployed again to Africa, this time to Somalia, where we were engaged in the 93 peacekeeping mission, which I sometimes joke wasn't very peaceful at all. And and then decided that at some point I want to do something different. I've been to 16 countries. I've done pretty much every what I call high speed, low drag schools that you could do. I was kind of at the pinnacle as a young captain, and I had to make a decision. And me and my wife decided that we wanted to come back to Texas, and Houston was the choice. And so I enrolled at the U of H Law School and did well there. Finished second in my class, and again was in a position where I had the choice of what I wanted to do and where I wanted to go. And I decided to I started my career at a firm called Sussman Godfrey in downtown Houston. Again, working with all walks of life and people that I typically wouldn't think I could compete with. I mean, these were people from Harvard, Yale. These were the managing editors of most of the most esteemed law reviews across the country, and figured out pretty quick that I could compete and excel. And took a leap, kind of a leap of faith. I went to a local bank, and I really didn't have. I mean, even after I'd only been working for a year, I didn't really have any money. I had a pretty fat salary, but beyond that, that's all I had. And somehow convinced the bank that I was a good investment, and they gave me a $100,000 line of credit. I look back on it now, and I kind of smile about that. But they took a gamble on me, and I started my law practice in a strip center in Friendswood, Texas, and I started with one receptionist and one legal assistant, and over the years ended up owning part of that bank. And sat on its board for a while, but grew that small law practice into the firm that it is today. And now we have, 20 lawyers and 100 or more employees. And most of my employees are 15, 17, 20-year employees, long-term employees, which I'm proud of. And we get called to do cases that matter. Sometimes when I give talks to people, I say, there's 1.3 million lawyers in the country. What sets you apart? I talk to my young lawyers all the time. Like, why don't you tell me, why would anybody hire you? There's thousands upon thousands of lawyers in this city. They hire you because you have a cool website. I don't think that's it. Until you can articulate that, you have not found, your niche. And I know why people hire me. And I want the people that work for me, that work with me to know the same thing. And I always say, I'm running for city council right now in the city of Houston. And my basic argument is, there's a million or more lawyers across the country. But when people are facing a crisis, I usually get a call. The attorney general is facing losing his entire political career. He could have called anybody in the country. He called me. I didn't know him. I mean, he didn't call me because we were friends. When Rick Perry, the former governor of our state, who had served 17 years as governor, when he was indicted by a Travis County grand jury and was facing 99 years in prison for alleged abuse of power, there's no doubt that, he could have called any lawyer, any firm in the country, and they would have been very honored to represent him. He called me. So I'm very proud of that. And the secret to all that is hard work. A lot of times, nowadays, younger people coming up, including my kids, are always looking for some shortcut or looking for, there must be some secret sauce, or, what is the secret? And the fact is that the secret is hard work. And that's really all there is. I wake up in the morning and I'm thinking about what I'm going to do, what I'm going to accomplish. I go to sleep thinking the same thing. Sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night, and I always keep a little pad next to my bed and make notes. And, I since I was a young person, I've been very goal oriented. And typically, I think most people will tell you that it's one thing there's some people that have no goals at all, and they just kind of go wherever life takes them. There's some people that have goals, but they don't write them down. And then there's a group of people that have goals and write them down. And I think most people would agree that study this kind of thing, that is that third category of people that are the ones that accomplish the most, and have a purpose-driven life. That can, at the end of the day or at the end of a task, and look back and say, okay, this didn't go exactly as planned, but I had a plan, and maybe I veered left or right, but at least I was working off a roadmap. And so that's me in a nutshell.
Did you develop that early? Because if we can go back to how, what I've heard, what I know about you, and everything you've iterated right now, writing things down, having a goal. You said you wanted to get out of your town of 1,300 people.
Yeah.
College Station was a big city. Was there a plan to do that, or?
It was always learn and adjust. So, every situation that you get into, you try to just be a sponge, collect information, ask questions, listen, be receptive. I always believe in listen more, talk less. And, when I go into a situation, I'll sit there and listen, and just listen to everybody say whatever they're going to say. I read everything I can read about it. And then at some point it comes clear to me what needs to be done. And then, just like it, I'd written goals down when I was in high school. I'd written goals down in college. In college, I wrote goals down every semester. I had short-term, long-term goals. I did the same.
But I mean, did you have a goal to become an attorney?
Not until I was in the Marines. No.
Right.
Again, it just kind of
worked out that way.
Kind of worked that way. Somebody, I believe that there is some sort of plan. I don't want to get too philosophical, but I do believe that there's a master plan, and each of us is trying to figure out where we fit in that. And
I agree.
So I'm always looking to try to figure that out.
What role did seeing your parents raise you the way they did, seeing them how they worked, and your mother, being right there at the school, making sure you're okay, but your father working hard. What kind of impact did that have on you?
Growing up hard was not. There was no other option. When I grew up, there was no other option. I got up in the morning and fed our animals. We had hogs and chickens and one cow. And then I did the same thing when I came home from school, and it was garden season. My dad had me out there tilling the garden, digging potatoes, planting tomatoes, picking tomatoes, okra, corn, everything, peas, you name it. We grew it. And not because it was organic or because it was farm to table, just because that's what we had for our food.
That's right.
And in the summer, harvesting watermelon and throwing watermelons and hauling hay. My dad, during football season, 2-a-days, I would go to football practice in the morning, haul hay during the middle of the day, and go to football practice in the afternoon. That was just what I had to do.
Yeah.
And so there was no option. I mean, this was like,
you're working hard.
This is your job. And
there you go.
So I saw my dad work his tail end off, and saw that he, I think their house, I've figured it out later on, but I think they bought their house for $14,000, and took them 20 years to pay it off.
Oh my Lord.
And, we didn't have any air conditioner or central heat and air in our house, but so we would leave the windows open in the summertime for a breeze. And but our house was so small, I shared the bed with my brother, and because it was a 3-bedroom house, but our walls were so thin, I could hear my parents in the next room talking about which bill they could pay that month, which bill they couldn't pay. So I kind of grew up with always, we never went hungry. I don't want to suggest that, because my dad was a good provider and always made sure, because we hunted and fished and we, did all that.
Sure.
And always I killed 2 deer every year for, 20 years until I stopped, figured I'd killed enough deer in my life. But what that really means in you is like, man, I want to get to a position where I don't have to, the dragon's not at the door anymore. And because the entire time I was raised, it was always hand to mouth. And, are we going to be able to, my mother bought all of our Christmas on layaway. She would go in and make the payments on layaway. People probably don't even know what that is anymore, but
I certainly do.
yeah.
Yeah.
But that's just kind of what ingrained in me. And so working hard for me was, that's just part of it. And
and with that, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, and with that, I would go so far as to say not a relative amount, but a hefty amount of injustice that comes along with that. I see you as a fierce defender of people.
Yeah, I think I have a kind of a chip on my shoulder in that respect. I really probably feel best in my strike zone as far as feeling like I'm doing my best work when I'm standing up to bullies. When I always like it when somebody, I've had clients say to me that, I told them I'm calling Tony Buzbee. I love it when they use my name as some kind of threat. Even there's lawyers across the city now that sometimes use my name as if we don't settle this case, I'm calling Tony Buzbee, and I never get a penny out of it, but I guess I hear about it later, and it's kind of cool that somebody's making money off my name and without giving me any cred. But I think
you've earned that, though. You've earned that. I mean, there's I don't want to go through the cases that I know about, but I tell you what, it's so impressive. The one with the electrician that they weren't going to give him any money, and here, we're so happy to have you and thank you for your 20 years of service, but we'll cover your medical bills, and the guys lost limbs, and I mean, it's like, no, I love that, to where you have a chip on your shoulder, and that's what I want people to hear in this interview. That's what I want people to understand about you, is that you're going for District G. Yeah, I live in District G. We are a wealthy district. I mean, up the road, people are taking their kids to school in the family roles.
Yeah.
My wife's a teacher. She sees it, and I'm like, well, my God, how are we have so much money in this district, but our roads are terrible? And that doesn't mean that everybody here is a millionaire. There's a lot of people that are struggling. There's a lot of housing issues. So just because we have this moniker of having River Oaks and Tanglewood in our lexicon, it doesn't mean that there's people out here that aren't struggling. You have people that what was it, Westheimer and Westerland, over where that apartment complex is. I remember.
Yeah.
And that thing, so you drive down there and it's like there's been a storm.
Yeah.
I mean, that water that's an issue. So the people that live there, they're not millionaires. They're not going out there and, they probably make about 50, 60 grand a year. Who knows?
Well, that intersection you're referring to, there's a retirement home on one corner and there's an apartment complex on the other
That's
corner.
Right.
And we went into and what we're talking about here, of course, is a busted water main that is just free flowing water. And it's flowing about more than 5 gallons a minute. And if you think about that, just in 24 hours, that's 7,000 gallons of water. And if you keep doing the math, and that had been like that for 13 days in a row. So you think about 13 times 7, and we could keep going with the math. But the bottom line is, we're at the same time that the people in that apartment complex are having issues with regard to water pressure, and the folks in that retirement home have no water pressure, but they're both facing humongous water bills.
Right. They're both paying for it.
And we're in a drought.
Yeah.
And at the same time, we're being told to conserve water. We're in stage 2 water shortage. And if you were to go out and water your lawn on the wrong day, you could face a $2,000 fine. But at the same time, water is free flowing into the street, 900 different places. That's just one example. And there's 900 more. And it's not sexy. I mean, it's not sexy to make sure that when you're living in District G and you call 311, that somebody actually takes your call and responds and actually fixes something. I know that doesn't sound sexy, but that's really government.
It is, though.
That's government, and our government is failing us. And the same is true with regard to the roads we drive on a daily basis. 75% of them are in need of real repair. And then, I mean, if you have children and you're trying to raise children, take them to school, or maybe you want to go to the Galleria. A lot of people won't even go to the Galleria anymore because they're worried about crime. My wife, when I'm out of town, which unfortunately I'm out of town often on work, she hires a security guard. Now, not everybody can do that, but she doesn't feel comfortable in River Oaks. And we're supposed to be the hoi polloi place of this city.
Right.
And this city is just a dangerous city. And what irks me the most, maybe the most, is the fact that Dallas, Texas is considered one of the safer cities in the country. And they're winning all these awards about how they're policing, and they have a plan, and they're following their plan, and they're using, hot zone policing, and they're being innovative. What are we doing? Well, we're having forums and we're talking about it. Beyond that, we're doing nothing. Right. And so how can we be a leader in the country if we can't even take care of fixing a busted water main? And so that's just a leadership issue. And I refuse to accept the idea that well, we don't have enough money, because I know that 2 years ago, the budget of the city was $4 billion as far as what we're spending. And now we're spending $6 billion. But nothing's gotten any better. Now, certainly the population has increased to some degree, but not to that degree. So it makes you really wonder, what are we doing at the city of Houston? And the basic answer is not a whole lot.
Tony, hold that thought. We're going to take a break. And when we come back, we're going to come back, talk a little bit more about that chip that's on your shoulder that's going to absolutely benefit all of us in Houston. And we're going to talk about your vision for Houston and maybe for Texas. So everybody stick around. We'll be right back.
White Husky Films. Dream, create, record. We create ads and promos for your business. We can promote your video on television, Facebook, YouTube, Hulu, and more. We do a full Google SEO analysis for you with any plan. Call us today at 305-744-1444 or visit our website at whitehuskyfilms.com. White Husky Films.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Work Your Career Wednesday. I hope you're really enjoying this talk. We are getting into some things with Tony Buzbee. And I tell you what, Tony, we were talking a little bit offline, and, you have this reputation, this sort of like, if you want to be the man, you better beat the man. And later on, I want to talk about all the stuff that you have a great post on Instagram where you were addressing your staff. And I just love it. And I want to go through it. But for this campaign and for what you want to do for Houston, what really I think could be a catalyst for Texas, that chip on your shoulder, man, like what is it about that is going to take Houston to really the next step, to where your wife doesn't have to go with security, to where we don't have the tire cartel every time you go down the street in Westheimer. I had a friend, he's got a place in a real nice place in Alvin, and he came and visited me. His name's Eric, and he had a jacked up Ford, and man, he got on me so bad because when he came and visited me, he said, "Man, I had to have my truck in the shop as an alignment going back there." This guy lives in the country.
Yeah. He
goes mudding with his truck, but he had to get an alignment coming to Houston. So, Tony, how are you going to apply that fierceness, that idea that we're in a fight and you're fighting for us, you're fighting for everybody, not just in District G, you're fighting for all of Houston, because all of, tell us what's your plan to really take that fire and make things happen?
A lot of times in a leadership position, just the attitude of excellence is contagious, and we don't have that. Any new organization, and I know you understand this, and I'm sure your followers and listeners know this too, is that it all starts with leadership. And when somebody comes in and says, business as usual is not good enough anymore, adequate is not enough. What we're getting in Houston, we don't have a sense of excellence. We don't have a sense of, we want to be better. We want to do better. I'm very particular I'm very competitive, and, I'm going to be very competitive as a council member. I want to be the very best that there is. I want to do the best job that's ever been done. I want to do it in an innovative and a smart way. And clearly what's happening now is not being done very well. In some cases, it's being done very poorly. I mean, just your example with your friend from Alvin. That's just flat out ridiculous that that somebody driving these roads, because they drive our roads, they need to fix a tire or get their alignment redone. I mean, that's just the most basic. I believe government should be receptive and should work, and part of that is just the most basic things. We can talk about having a poet laureate, and we can talk about fancy lights and all the stuff that you hear down in City Hall that they're spending money on. But I want to hear about how do we fix our roads in a smart way, in an efficient way? How do we make sure that the people who are paying the bills? I think the current council member, when she talks about spending taxpayer dollars, she uses the word "I." It's very offensive to me. That's not her money. That's our money. She says, "I spent my allotment on this. I spent my allotment on." Well, guess what? That's our money you're spending. And the people have a right to know how their money's being spent. There's a drainage fee, as an example, in the city of Houston that the voters voted upon in a charter amendment. And the idea is that, okay, we're suffering with drainage issues, that the sheet flow, that when we have a rain is going into the sewer systems, but it's not being whisked away and put into the bayous in an efficient way such that it goes to the ship channel in an efficient way. And so we have a drainage fee to deal with some of those issues. Well, now we know that the drainage fee is not being used in whole for drainage, which is the voters specifically voted for that. But no one ever talks about that. No one ever tells people that that's the case. If you were to ask, there was a forum that I was in just this morning where one of the residents and voters asked my opponent, who's been in council for 2 years, about how the money was being spent with regard to the sewage fee. She didn't know. She couldn't give the answer, and therein lies the problem. Sometimes the best disinfectant is sunlight. The best way to make sure that people do their job in the right way is shine a light on it, and to know what questions to ask. It's really, the answer is not as important as the right question being asked, and that's what we're lacking.
You know what I think too, Tony, is, so for example, I remember that campaign event you had when you were running for mayor, and you had a room full of folks that were voters, but you had a room full of folks that, everybody wants to be an expert. Mm-hmm. Everybody wants to know politics. Everybody wants to know that they know, but not a lot of people do. Can you give us a brief civics lesson on why this is so important, on why this seat in particular is so important?
Well, the position is as big as you make it. But let's talk about just the basic mechanics of the city. So there's 16 council people. All right. There's some of those, 5 of those are what they call at large. So they represent the city as a whole. And then you have districts. Okay. Mm-hmm. And then of course the mayor sets the agenda. We have a very strong mayoral form of government in the city of Houston. Now, it may not be as evident as it is to me because I'm engaged in it all the time and thinking about it all the time, but whoever sets the agenda has all the power. And so in the city of Houston, the council has no ability to put anything on the agenda. And if a council member fights the mayor about the agenda or about some of the items that the mayor has placed on the agenda, the mayor has the ability to withhold funds or projects in that particular district. So what you have here is you have 16 council members. 11 of them represent specific districts across the city, and in our case, District G. And then there are 5 that are kind of roving council members who represent the city at large. And the idea there is to make sure that demographically everybody is represented. And then you have the mayor. And the mayor not only gets to set the agenda 100% with no input, has to take no input at all, but also gets to vote. So there's 17 votes total. So if you look at it that way, you would say, well, shoot, a council member has no power whatever. Well, I reject that 100% because one vote is one vote, of course. But if you do the job the right way, you can be incredibly influential. You can build coalitions. You can cajole the mayor to put things on the agenda. You can shame the mayor to put things on the agenda. You can go
a certain saber rattle too.
Yeah, you can go directly to the people and raise issues. You can talk about the drainage fee that everybody's already grousing about having to pay and wondering, why am I paying this drainage fee? But nothing has been done. If there's another Hurricane Harvey, we're in the exact same position we were before Hurricane Harvey. Nothing has been done. And so we know that the taxes continue to go up. And of course, there's a revenue cap. There's a cap in the city of Houston, but it doesn't mean that we're paying less in taxes. It just means as our CAD values are going up and the assessed value goes up, the city ratchets down the rate, but they're still collecting more in taxes. So we're not getting any tax cut despite what we're being told. You have these forums where you have the police chief Fenner and other people amongst the constabulary come out and they paint this glowing picture about how safe the city of Houston is and how crime is trending down. But all of us who live here, who actually make a living here and raise kids here and run a business here, we all know that's not the case, but they try to sell that to us. And so that's how one council member can be effective if he or she is informed, articulate, can make the case and make the arguments. And when they fail, if I can't build a coalition, if I can't get some of my colleagues to join me, if I can't make the case in front of council in the public session, then guess what? I just say, okay, we're going to talk more about this on the steps of City Hall, and we're going to bring this to light, and we're going to form a committee of citizens, not government people, not the bureaucrats that have been in the city, because all it is the same people that have been there for 25 years. It's just like a smaller version of Washington, D.C. or a smaller version of Austin. It's the same people, no matter the party. It's the same people. And they're set in their ways, and they don't like pushback, and they pretty much, their response is always, this is the way we've always done it. No, that won't work. They won't consider a different way until you shame them. That's really until you say, okay, the people should know how their money is being spent. The people should know what the real priorities of, because if you really want to know what the priorities are, look at how money is being spent. That's where you find what the actual priorities, not what's in some fancy brochure that you've published, but actually how the money is spent. And so what we have in the city of Houston, we have an airport system that has a significant portion of the budget that's out of control with no oversight whatsoever. You have a metro, same story, and again, the easy answer when people start raising these issues is, oh, well, you're against public transportation. No, I'm against public transportation that doesn't make any sense. When I'm not a fool, I can see the buses that run across this city that have one person on them. I see that, and I know how much money we're spending on that. We got to do a better job. I could spend money just on an Uber for that one person that's riding that bus that goes down Post Oak, one person, versus spending that TERS, the Uptown TERS spent millions upon millions taking people's properties on both sides of that bus lane, paying them an exorbitant rate of money as a condemnation fee, and then building a bus line that nobody uses. This is how our city is being run. And people don't realize
really
this.
Interesting. Well, it's really interesting. And then the pushback you get on that is, what about for that one person that can't afford the Uber that needs that bus to get to work? And the thing is that that's not what you're talking about. You're talking about having an infrastructure, certainly a spending infrastructure that makes sense. That person, that if they're going to take that bus line and there are only one or two people on it, that's okay for them to do it, because the other money that's being allocated, we all know where it's going, and it's going to the right places.
Yeah, I mean, we have to.
That's what I'm hearing.
That's government has to prioritize things. I mean,
right.
In my mind, the first thing is public safety. It's always public safety first,
right.
And then it's transportation, where roads that work such that you don't have people blowing out their tires or blowing their front end alignment. And then you go to drainage, and then you have to have priorities. And the problem,
the safety is an issue.
Number one.
I'll say that, and I don't know how much I should go into it. I mean, I'm just little old Bradley Clark.
Bradley Clark wants his family to be safe.
Damn right. And here's the thing: I was at a Starbucks. And so I ran into two HPD. They were getting coffee there, and we just started talking. I noticed the kind of Glock he was wearing, and I had just gotten one that that I like pretty well. So we were talking about that. And I said something I shouldn't have said. I said, so how things in the city? And he looked at me and he said, well, Mr. Clark, we're doing our best.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like, man, that guy, he couldn't have been more than 27, you know what I mean? So 27, 28. So, he's starting his career, combat vet, much like you. And it kind of touched my heart, because it's like, there are these people that are trying to keep us safe that I think have they want to, but their hands are being tied.
Mm-hmm.
What can we do about that? Particularly from the seat that you're running for. What can we do about that? And how can we help as citizens?
Well, first thing you can do is exactly what you did. I'm sure you gave him a word of encouragement.
Absolutely did.
But if you ask the police union, they'll say we need 1,500 more police officers on the streets. If you ask the police chief, he will say we need at least 500. But whatever the number is, we're very depleted as far as.
Do we need more police or more lamps?
Good point. And we need to be smart about our policing. Dallas figured it out, and there's a lot of there's been theories throughout. We look back at like New York City when they went.
Giuliani.
Yeah, Giuliani went through and really cleaned up the city and made it such that people felt safe going there. We're at that point here. I had an event when I was running for mayor. We were in the Uptown area and had a very big turnout, and about 30 cars were smashed and grabbed right there, just at one of my events. And
really?
The house where I'm sitting in right here was broken into by 8 gang members, and I was burglarized. All throughout, if you drive from here where I'm sitting here and you drive directly west past Beltway 8 all the way to Highway 6, which is basically what District G is, it will be like finding an Easter egg if you see a police officer. You don't see them because they're not in District G. I challenge your listeners and your viewers, just when you're driving around District G specifically, just try to pick out a police officer. You won't see them. What you see instead is a lot of the communities in District G have bitten the bullet and are using private security or using the local constable's office and paying extra for extra patrols, which is incredibly expensive. But the people
the villages that they'll do private security with the villages.
That's true too. And it's so part of it is where they're understaffed. Other part of it is that it's security of District G is not on the priority list of the current mayor, and it won't be on the priority list of the next mayor. Whoever it might be will not be unless somebody raises Cain about it, because 37% of the revenues, the tax revenues that are generated in the city of Houston come from District G. 37%. And if you think about where District G is, with the Galleria, Uptown, River Oaks District, that's the area that a lot of people that are coming from out of town, that's where they go. So not only does District G generate a lot of tax revenue, it generates a lot of visitorship from outside of town, people that come and shop, enjoy themselves, et cetera. And so if District G fails, if we continue to say, oh, well, the representative of District G, she's just really a piece of furniture, and she really doesn't read her packet, and she doesn't really go to very many meetings, and we can do this. We're going to continue to put public housing in District G, and we're going to continue to allocate our resources elsewhere, not District G, because everybody in District G, of course, is rich, of course, right? Everybody.
Oh yeah, everybody.
Well, this is the attitude, and it's so wrong. And you know what? Yeah, those folks over in District G, we're going to allocate resources for fixing our roads elsewhere. They'll figure it out themselves. Same with policing. Well, that'll go on for a while, but ultimately District G will go the way of every other area in the city of Houston. And guess what? The city fails when that happens. And so
that's right.
It's hard to, there is abundance in some places. In some places in District G. And so it's maybe it's a little more difficult to advocate in some respects. But you know what? ultimately the health of District G is an indicator of the health of the city. And the way it's been treated now is they're not getting any representation. The people here are not being represented in the right way. And what's good for District G is good for the city. I mean, that's the bottom line. And so that's the reason, Francis and I have joked a lot of times, after the mayor race that, I got my face beat in pretty good and got beat pretty handily by Mayor Turner. And, to his credit, he's a really good politician. Now, whether you think he's a good mayor or not, that's a different story. We don't have to debate it. But we had decided after that, like, okay, we're going to focus our efforts on, because when we married, one of the things we said is we're going to join forces. We made a mission statement. I know it sounds a little corny, but we made a mission statement.
Not if people understand who you married.
To join forces and try to do tangible good, not just platitudes, but like awesome. Objective good. And it's still posted in our kitchen on our little bulletin board. But after the mayor's race, we pretty much together decided, okay, politics, no more of that. And so we focused on, animal rescue. We do the Houston Children's Charity.
What you guys are doing at Antioch is really pretty impressive.
Hundreds of animals there rescued. Yeah. And so this mayor race rolled around. I kept telling Frances, I said, I may do it again. And she's like, oh, please, Tony, no. And I was like, I may do it again. I said, let me run a poll.
Can we just get a llama?
Yeah.
There's a llama that needs rescued. Can we just do that? And
funny story about the llamas. There was some people that during COVID could no longer take care of their llamas, and they wanted to bring them to our place, and they showed up in a maroon minivan. And I was like, well, okay, where's the llamas? Well, they were in the maroon minivan. So they got out of the van like two clowns coming out of a clown car. But yeah. Wait, so I ran a poll and figured out that, what, I just cannot win. What would happen likely is I would make the runoff again, and I would make it with Sheila Jackson Lee. And, I just did not want to be responsible for that. So I decided to run for District G, and that's what I'm going to do.
Well, we need, I'm sorry, we need you in District G. I'll tell you. And you know what? If the opposition was to come on and on my show and tell me why we should vote for her, I'd be more than happy to have her on. But, honestly, there's a lot of things that I've seen in the past just few years. Like, for example, I don't understand what happened with the school board. I know what happened with the school board because a friend of mine was elected to the school board, and she's not on the school board anymore because they got rid of it. What in the absolute world is going on in our city?
It seems like everything's falling apart, and you don't hear a strong reasonable voice saying, wait a minute.
They put $1 million from a Minnesota teachers union, put $1 million into her opposition campaign after a runoff.
Mm-hmm.
And then she, with the runoff, she just demolished that after the money had been put into the opposition campaign. And then now all of a sudden so she finally wins her seat. She's making a difference. And then it's gone. She was elected for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
She was elected for a reason, and I was happy to cast my vote for her. Happy. My wife teaches these kids, and she's seen things. Anyway, I'm so happy you were running for District G, and I'm happy I live in District G, and we're going to see what we can do. Tony, we're going to take a quick break one more time, and when we come back, we got more for Mr. Tony Buzbee. So stay tuned. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Oh, hi. I didn't see you there. Hey, if you like Work Your Career Wednesday and want to be notified every single time we have a new episode, like, share, and subscribe. Hit that notification bell. Smash it. Get a hammer and get it. And
Yeah, that's fine.
Too much?
No, that's fine.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I love it. People want.
Do you hear Steven in the background? I was just making sure I'm going to be okay. But get that notification going. And hey, we will be letting you know, or I guess YouTube will be letting you know, when the next Work Your Career Wednesday is on. So make sure you like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Man, ding it, ring it, sling it, and bing it. All right? And we will see you soon. Work Your Career Wednesday. Oh, great. I'm glad you stopped by. Be sure to get that subscription bell, and I'll see you there.